What's up, everybody? We are back for chapter 2 of Anytime Soon. I have on my cozy reading sweater, so you know whenever you see me in this sweater, that means it's about to go down. I also, homage to the grapes, that means it's about to go down. So we are on chapter 2 of Anytime Soon. We finished the first chapter yesterday. And just for a quick recap, we talked about how much we like Anaya and her friend group. They're pretty close. We had some issues going on. Sophie's got some little secretive stuff going on. Katie, we seem to like her. She seems to keep it like it is, keep it real. I'm not really sure how I feel about Anaya just yet, but we're gonna get started. So we left them off. They were supposed to be going to a party. Katie invited Sophie. Sophie said, okay. Sophie got the coke habit. And Anaya and her family are grieving her brother. So we're seeing the dynamics there and how that's unfolding. And she's in therapy and we haven't met her sister yet. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So we are on to chapter 2, booze. I got my sweater, I got my vino, and I'm ready to go. Y'all ready? Let's do it. I worked part-time in an interdisciplinary department at the University of California. My official title was Administrative Assistant of the School of Arts, Letters, and Sciences. But my job was basically to do whatever the faculty members asked me to do. Don't I know that? Most of the time, I liked my job. The hours were flexible, the pay was pretty good, and the work wasn't demanding. So I was able to focus on my college coursework. One morning when I got to work, I found out the department had hired a young woman as extra help in the front office. Initially, it seemed like a good idea until she started dogging me daily with questions and hadn't absorbed any of the training that I gave her. Okay, it's too early for me to go in, but I feel her on that. I was patient though. In fact, I was patient and nice, even when she told me she couldn't focus on what I was saying because she had been partying the night before. I didn't let her drive me crazy. Graduation was around the corner and I had bigger things to focus on. This girl is mature. I had recently decided not to go directly to grad school. I planned to work for a year and then start applying to programs. I wanted to get my own place and settle in before starting school again. Good, because you need to move out, girl. The days seemed to drag on and the new girl forgetting things and making the same mistakes over and over again. Late in the day, I decided to walk over to the accounting office to pick up my paycheck. I smiled to myself when I noticed that I had received an hourly increase. The day just got a little better. It always will when you get a pay raise, you know what I'm saying? I took the long way back to the office. As I sat back at my desk, my phone rang. It was Katie. "What up, Cal?" she said. "You have great timing," I said. "Guess what?" "What?" she said. She asked. "I got a raise." "Wow," she said. "I knew all those hard hours would pay off. What do you make now? $3 an hour?" Katie is something else, isn't she? "Excuse me? Don't make fun. I make an honest living. Respect me." I almost immediately regretted the comment. Katie's chosen profession was one that the average woman could never be proud of. Katie wasn't the average woman, though. She managed her career, or dates rather, like she did everything in her life, with spontaneity and chaos. I didn't ask her a lot of details about what she did. I just hoped and prayed every day that she would come around and decide to do something different with her life. She was a beautiful, smart girl. Why waste all of that? So Katie is y'all pick up on the same thing I pick up on? Katie, her dates, like, come on, let me just. Katie was quiet for a few seconds too long. Then she said, "I have the most utmost respect for you, my dear." The sincerity in her voice made me smile. "I called because I wanted to ask you about your school." "What about it?" I said. "Do you know what it would take for me to get back in?" "Not really," I said, "but I can find out." "Why do you need to know?" "Because I'm thinking about going back to school," she said, sounding exasperated with me. A lump formed in my throat and my eyes filled with tears. I couldn't say anything, so I just stayed quiet. "Call me when you finish crying," she said. "Bye, cry baby." "I'm not crying." "Whatever, Nye. Get me the info and call me tonight. I have a date at 8, but after that I'm free. Can you drive me?" That's what she was really calling for. I didn't like driving Katie on her dates. I didn't even like for her to go. In your wildest dreams, you just never think that one of your best friends will become a prostitute, and there we have it. We have some of the worst fights over her chosen profession, and I finally decided to stop fighting her about it. When she first started, I thought it was just a phase. I figured she was trying to find a way to deal with her parents' deaths. I wasn't happy about what she did, but she was my best friend and I loved her. Whenever she went out, she had this guy named Sam drive her, But when Sam got in a car accident a few months ago, Katie started having a hard time finding someone else to drive her to her dates. Katie, what am I going to do if something happens? I asked. You're going to help me. That's what you're going to do, she said. Help you how? Trust me, if I need help, you'll figure out what to do. I knew better than to ask too many questions over the phone. Okay, I said hesitantly. You want me to meet you at your house? I can be there by 4:30. I won't be ready until about 6. I'm getting my highlights touched up today. Why don't you meet me at Jazzy's? Okay, I agreed. Good, you need something done to that hair anyway. I'll see you there, I said. Good. With that, Katie hung up on me for the billionth time. She never said goodbye. So I called her back. Hello? You didn't say bye, I said. We don't say bye in my culture, she said, and hung up again. I laughed to myself. I like Katie. A moment later, Erwin Klein, the sociology professor, walked into my office with a big smile on his face. He was in his early 40s, single and very handsome. He looked like an older version of Paul Walker. I love Paul Walker. You remember Paul Walker? God rest his soul. I love him so much. He was beautiful soul. Beautiful man. I liked him because he was always pleasant. No matter how crazy it got in the office, he smiled and stayed calm. He didn't have any children, but he had 2 dogs that he treated just like kids. Despite his good looks, it was obvious that his wardrobe was at the very bottom of his list of priorities. He wore the same jeans almost every day and the same shirt almost every other day. I once heard him tell someone on the phone that he owned one suit, which he had bought 10 years before. He was nice to chat with, but I think he had a touch of attention deficit disorder. Whenever he came to my desk to talk with me, he'd always pick something up and start fiddling with it. The students were crazy about him. He had more student appointments than any other faculty members combined. Whenever I summarized his student evaluations, most of them were rave reviews. How are you today? Good, he said, cheerfully as anyone possibly could. I'm fine, Professor. How are you? I'm great. I just picked up my dogs from their annual physical. Is everything okay? I asked. Everything's fine, and they were on their best behavior. I'm going to take them out for a long walk after work today. I smiled but went on with my work, not daring to ask any questions. If I showed an inkling of interest in those canines, he would have talked to me for 20 minutes. I didn't have even 1 minute to spare for dog talk, not today anyway. When he was gone, I cleared my inbox the best I could. I'm generally a neat person, and my workspace reflected it. I had everything neatly in piles, one for responses I was waiting for from the professors, another for stuff that I needed to be filed, and a third for callbacks I needed to make. Behind my desk, I kept a stack of things that I didn't want to deal with and some stuff that needed to be signed and mailed out. I could work in clutter for a little while, but I started to lose my concentration if my workspace stayed muddled for too long. I think I got that from my mom, who claimed to be allergic to clutter and mess. She liked everything neat and orderly. She dusted our blinds, wiped down the windowsills almost as often as most folks wash their dishes. I think she would have dusted the roof if she could have gotten up there. The fact that Mom and I were at least alike in that area gave me some comfort. After 3 o'clock, the traffic in the office died down, so that was a good time to get work done. Professor Jeffrey Alexander had 6 phone messages waiting for him. When I put them on his mailbox, I realized he hadn't been in all day, so I sent him a short email telling him that which things seemed urgent. When I shut down my desk for the day at 5, Professor Klein was still in his office with his door closed, so I sent him a quick email telling him that I was going. I met Katie at Jazzy's, and the hair appointment took only 2 hours of my life. I didn't spend a moment of it waiting around. When it was time to leave, Katie paid for both of our fabulous hairdos and gave her hairdresser a tip. Katie had extreme mood swings, maybe even multiple personalities. She could be happy and upbeat 1 minute, but down and depressed the next. When we pulled into the garage of her luxury high-rise condominiums, the attendant helped her out of the car. She didn't speak or thank the gentleman or even look at him. That was certainly a clue that she was in one of her darker moods. I let myself out of the car and met her at the elevator. She lived on the 30th floor of her building. Each floor past the 25th had its own key, so the elevator let us out directly into her condo. Without a word, she went straight to her bedroom and closed the door. Katie's condo was nice. It looked like it could be featured in a magazine. It originally had 3 bedrooms, but she converted one into an office and another into a workout room. There were 3 bathrooms, a laundry room, a formal dining room, and a gourmet kitchen. The girl couldn't make noodles, but she still insisted on having a gourmet kitchen. I sat down on her brown leather couch, looking through her photo albums. She always had new pictures from the parties she attended. I was still impressed by some of the people she met. She finally walked out of the bedroom wearing tight red leather pants, a red sequin halter, and a short red mink. She was holding her shoes in her hands, and when I saw how high the heels were, I knew why. How many inches are those? 6. A pair of silver drop earrings had taken place of her diamond hoops because she never wore her best jewelry to appointments. She smelled like flowers, had on too much blush, and was wearing her way too long fake lashes. Ready, she said. Her expression was blank, but there was irritation in her voice. We had fought about her work far too many times. She knew I thought she was letting her potential go to waste. I didn't want to go with her, but I didn't want to leave her stranded either. Anything could happen to her. I loved Katie, but I hated what she did. I felt like she'd given up. Somehow she had convinced herself that no one cared about her. Katie, you know you don't have to do this, I said cautiously. Do what? Live like this. She looked around her condo and spread her arms. Like a queen, you mean? I don't have to live like a queen? Katie, you know what I mean. This is not you. You're too good for this, I said, walking closer to her. You've always had it easy, Nye, she said. You don't know what survival is about. Maybe I don't know what it's like to live in a foster home after foster home, but I do know what it's like to care about someone. You have people who care about you, I said. This life is not for you. I knew for sure that Katie was not raised for this kind of life because I knew her parents. She was originally from Fresno and moved to the Bay Area to live with foster parents when she was a little girl. She was biracial but would never tell us what the races were. She has been sexually abused when she moved in and out of foster homes until the Johnsons adopted her when she was 7. When Katie moved in with the Johnsons, she finally got some stability. The Johnsons lived a few houses down from us across the street. They were nice people. Before Katie came around, Mrs. Johnson used to talk to Mom about having kids, but she couldn't get pregnant. Over the years, they had fostered more than a dozen kids. They got on a waiting list for an infant. When they were waiting, the lady at the adoption agency asked if they would consider fostering parenting Katie for a few months. The Johnsons agreed to take her, and Mrs. Johnson told Mom they knew Katie was going to be their child from the moment they saw her. She said that Katie was sent to them from God. There was an adjustment when Katie moved in. She had been abused and neglected so much that she didn't trust anybody. She also didn't like to clean, do homework, or go to church. The Johnsons had a hard time getting her to be respectful. They went to private counseling and church counseling, but Katie was defiant. Nevertheless, they were eternally patient. Katie tested her boundaries to the fullest. She went away from home one time when she was 10, and the Johnsons didn't know what to do. Finally, the police found Katie up north somewhere. She had apparently gotten onto a Greyhound bus and was on her way to Reno. When they found her, she claimed the Johnsons were trying to force religion on her. The social services worker suggested to the Johnsons that it might be better if Katie was placed in another home, but her parents persuaded the worker to give them another chance. In an attempt to get Katie to settle down, they took privileges away from her and continued to take her to church. Mom used to force me to go over and try to play with her, but Katie was mean. Whenever I said anything to her, she just sat there with her arms folded and stared me down without saying a word. Finally, I told Mom I wasn't going back, and I didn't, at least not for a long time. I don't blame you. Nobody got time for that. Eventually, Katie warmed up to Mrs. Johnson, but she still had issues with Mr. Johnson, as she seemed to have with all men. The Johnsons were very patient, and Mr. Johnson was cautious in dealing with her. It took a while, and there were plenty of times when Mrs. Johnson came to our house in tears. Mom worried about them out loud. She didn't know if the Johnsons were tough enough to handle Katie. Her parents reasoned that she would be okay with prayer, love, and a church-going home. After 8 or 9 months, everything came together, and Katie became closer with Mr. Johnson than she was with Mrs. Johnson. After that, life was good. They went on vacations, Katie's grades improved, and they were a genuinely happy family. When Katie turned 18, the Johnsons were killed in a car accident. I didn't think Katie was going to make it through. Sophie and I would get her to leave the house. She barely made it to the funeral, and everybody wondered what would become of her. She would talk to me about missing her parents, but she didn't cry much. The Johnsons left her their 4-bedroom house, 3 insurance policies worth over $350,000, and a Mercedes-Benz coupe. My parents helped her sell the house and put the money in a trust. Katie moved in with us for a month, and during that time she was accepted into several colleges. She opted for the University of Santa Cruz. Mom was excited and proud. She helped Katie get all of her financial aid paperwork filed out and found grants and scholarships to pay for Katie's education. Mom paid for most of Katie's other expenses because she didn't want Katie to get accustomed to spending the money the Johnsons had left for her. Mom's biggest disappointment came when Katie dropped out of school after 1 semester. We couldn't figure out what happened because Katie had gotten A's in every class. She told Mom the school just wasn't for her and she wasn't going back. Shortly after that, Andrew died, and Mom wasn't able to keep up with Katie anymore. Mom would not be happy if she knew Katie's current situation. Look, Katie said, pointing a manicured finger at me. I have a date in 40 minutes, and you agreed to drive me. Can you just do that, please? She blinked her eyes a few times, looking as if she wanted to cry. I didn't pry. Keeping my word, I drove her to her appointment, which was somewhere in San Bruno, north of the airport. We just stayed quiet. I didn't know what she was thinking, but I didn't want to do small talk, and I didn't want to get into a serious conversation, so I just kept my mouth shut. When we pulled up in front of a huge house with beautiful landscaping and a red sports car parked in the driveway, Katie added some lip gloss, sighed, and got out. I watched her clop up to the front door in her 6-inch red heels. When the door opened, she disappeared inside. It really didn't make sense for me to be driving her. I wondered what would happen if she came out running and needed my help. What if I couldn't get the car started fast enough? Or what if the man came after me? Also, it was just irritating as hell sitting in that car knowing what she was doing inside. Of course, leaving wasn't an option, and I'd forgotten to bring along something to read. I tried to call Sophie, but she didn't answer. This was the third time this week that I tried to reach her and couldn't get through. I checked my voicemail and played a card game on my cell phone. I must have dozed off because I woke up to knocking on the window. "Open the door," Katie growled irritably. That was fast, or was it? How long had I been asleep? When she got in, she threw her shoes into the back seat and stared straight ahead. I wanted to know what happened, but she was so moody. When I asked if she wanted something to eat, she ignored me. When I asked her how to get back to the freeway, she only pointed. "What happened in there, Katie?" I finally asked as we headed towards the freeway entrance. She still didn't say anything. "Katie, he wanted Greek and I said no," she finally said in a nonchalant tone. "Why?" "Because I don't do that." "I thought you did everything." "Well, I don't," she snapped. I looked over at her sharply. She asked me to drive her out here and ignored me almost the whole way down, had an attitude on the way back, and now she was mad. I wasn't going to keep putting up with that. "Contrary to what you and anybody else might think about me," she said, "I do have rules and I do not do everything, okay?" "Katie," I snapped, "I drove you out here. You know I don't like doing this, but I did it because I'm your friend and because you asked me to. You acted crappy all the way down here. I don't have to be here, and I don't appreciate you talking to me like that. All I've ever been is a friend to you. And when you get in these moods, you take your frustrations out on me. I don't care if that man in there wanted you to be French, Greek, or Iranian. You don't get to take that problem out on me." "Are you kidding me?" she asked. "What?" I asked. "Greek is a position, Anaya. It's not an ethnicity." "Who the hell knew that?" "Well, whatever. I don't know about all that. Why are you so mad, and why are you leaving so early?" "I'm mad because he's one of my regulars. That was $4,000. She smacked her teeth like a kid. She'd always been a pouter. "Well, it just wasn't meant to be," I said dryly. Did she say $4,000? "Katie, do you get paid by the hour?" I knew it was off subject, but I was curious. "What?" she shrieked. "Do you get paid by the hour or by the things you do?" I sounded like I was in grade school. "It depends," she said after a long pause. "And do you have sex every single time you go to these appointments?" I could feel her glaring at me. "Yes, I do," she said slowly. "I could try and make it sound all glamorous and tell you sometimes they just want to talk or have somebody keep them company, but that's not true. I deal with men who have people around them to listen all damn day to what they have to say. They don't want that. They don't want conversation. They don't need companionship. They have wives, kids, and employees for that. They want sex, and every time I see them, they want to have sex with me in one way or another. They want to fondle me. They want to kiss me. They want me to be their whore. Sometimes they want me to be their mama. One wanted me to be his damn third grade teacher." I held up my hand. "Too much information, Katie." "Well, you asked," she said and pushed her seat far back. We were quiet the rest of the way home. Katie showered as soon as we got to her apartment. I sat in the living room looking at some pictures she had on the table. She was on a beach somewhere looking gorgeous. There was a whole pile of pictures, but they were all of her. I wondered who had taken them. In contrast to the photos, she finally came to the living room in sweats and a tank top, with her wet hair in a high ponytail, looking exactly like she did when we were in high school. "Anaya," she said, handing me $200 bills and a 50. "Thank you for driving me tonight." "No big," I said, taking the money. "No, it's a big deal. It's a big deal to you, and it's a big deal to me. I know how you feel about this. Thank you for putting that to the side to be there for me. You're the only person I know who cares about me like that. Everybody else only comes around because they need something from me. People always got their hands out for something. You're not like that. You never have been. You're a good girl, Nye. I've never met anybody like you. I know I don't say this much, but I'm glad we're friends." That was a rare moment for Katie. She was a lot of things, but hardly ever vulnerable. I knew it was hard for her to say this, so I didn't interrupt. I just let her talk. Finally, after she was quiet for a while, I asked, "Why do you want to go back to school?" "I'm tired, girl. Tired of being used, tired of being screwed, tired of being tired." She got quiet again. "So what do you want to do?" I don't know. Event planning, maybe. I can open up a small office downtown once I build up clientele, but I want to do it right. I don't want to hire a bunch of people to do stuff for me. I want to know how to do it myself. But first, I got to finish my education. It would mean a lot to Mama and Pop. Oh, Katie has a heart. This was only the second time I've ever heard her mention them, and as she did, her eyes brimmed with tears. When she stood to go in the kitchen, I gave her a hug. I'll call you tomorrow, I said. Okay, she said, hugging me back. Love you, I said, stepping into the elevator. She didn't respond. Okay, so there's some stuff to unpack here. Now, Katie had a rough life, and I don't know because I've never been in foster care, but I know how foster care can affect people later on in life, especially if they're in abusive situations. So this chapter was pretty deep, but I absolutely love the way Anaya is there for her. Like, she doesn't like driving her. She doesn't want to go and watch her friend do this. It hurts her, but she's still there for her. And I love that for her. And I love the way Katie showed up, and was like, hey, here's some cash. I know you didn't want to do this, but you did it for me, and I really appreciate you. So this chapter, I loved it. And this actually makes me like Anaya a little bit more, because in chapter 1, she got on my nerves. But in this one, she actually shows us a little bit more of who she is. She still is a little bit of a bugaboo. She gets into people's business. But hey, this is her best friend from when they were small. They've been through things together. She wants to be here for her, and she loves this girl. So I really enjoyed this chapter. I didn't know what Greek was either, so I learned a little something there. But this was a good chapter. So let me know what you guys think about this, chapter 2.